Okie dokie. Woo, yay.
There we go. I had a system update, and of course I forgot to check that everything's changed because Discord picked a new microphone and things. So of course OBS did too. But we had captions, so you could see what I said in the captions. I was just saying it's our last book club stream of 2025, and I'm excited because I've managed to be consistent. This is a new project we started this year, and we stuck to our minimum one stream a month. We even had, I think, one maybe 2 months where we had extra streams because obviously the general population of our book club at the moment skews a bit towards the fantasy, romantasy, romance side of most popular, but we also have some nonfiction readers who wanted to hang with us, give our book club a try. And one of the reasons I started this book club was I also wanted to branch out a bit in my own reading and read outside of my fantasy bubble. And it's extra fitting today that our last discussion stream of the year is one of those nonfiction reads, something that I probably would never have picked up before I started this book club. And we have one of our resident nonfiction fans joining us today. Is this your second or third time? Third, because
I think it's the third.
Third, because everything is tuberculosis and the Radium Girls. You were on both of them.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at me. I've read multiple nonfiction books this year. Who am I?
I've read books this year. That's crazy.
We read books. It's very exciting. So I read this one on my Kindle. So let me open this up because I actually took notes because it's a thing that I can do when I read books on here.
Nice.
I can do it with physical books too, and I am starting to tab and annotate books more often. I just don't do it as often, especially because if I'm reading one of my special edition, collector's edition books or something, I still have the hurdle of annotating in it because I'm like, this is a collectible. Don't do that. Even though it's like, it's your book, Laura. Do what you want.
I still have the same problem. I'll annotate things like I'll draw write on pencil on pages if it's like a classic or something like that. Cause
yeah,
you kind of have to. But with the newer books like this one, I have little slight strips of sticky notes, and I just stick them onto it. So if I do need to in the future, if I want to give it away, I'll just take them off.
Yeah, most of mine I just tab with sticky notes. I don't fully annotate, so I can just take the sticky notes off, and now it's back to normal.
Yeah.
Every so often, though, there are books I annotate. Like the book we're reading for our book club this month's read is an indie author who's semi-local to where I live, and I bought her whole trilogy. And need visual aids because I met her at a local book author event, and because she was there, she not only signed my copies but personally signed them all to me, so it has my name in them and everything. So I'm like, well, this is already technically a personalized defiled book. I might as well annotate the shit out of it, you know.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's shout out to the series we're reading right now. It's taking me so long to scroll to the top of my notes because I actually highlighted and took a lot of notes in this book. Who am I?
Nice.
So while I scroll to the top, the quick intro about this book, if you are joining us and haven't read it, it is called The Sirens Call, How Attention Became the World's Most Endangered Resource. And other than just seeing it on a list of some of the recommended nonfiction books of 2025, the reason why this appealed to me and I put it up as an option for voting is I have noticed something a phenomenon happening to my own attention span that this book talks a lot about, which is back in the day, it used to be I could watch a movie, play a game, read a book, and have that be the only stimuli, the only focus that my brain needs. But now, I don't know if it's because I've been streaming for so long and dual monitor lifing or having to multitask with things, but now it's I want to play a game, but also have a podcast going on my second monitor. I want to watch a movie, but I'm also doing something mindless on my phone while like periodically, or I read a book, but I put something on for background noise while I'm reading my book. And I've been just noticing my own attention and the way I pay attention to things and the way I consume media and my attention span changing. So this book appealed to me, and that's why I put it up there. So we'll start big picture and then go specific nitty gritty. Sam, what were your overall impressions of this book?
It's a bit of a hot button issue, isn't it? Recently, the how technology is changing so rapidly, and we're not really keeping up with it mentally on our own stead. So it's causing a lot of what we perceive as issues.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. This book was actually on, I don't know what year it was, but it was on Obama's list of books he read in a year. It might have been last year, it might have been this year's.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
I didn't know that.
It's also by Chris Hayes, who is a news anchor in the States.
He says he's a cable news person, and he talks a lot about his journalism career in the book. So yeah, I don't know if it's one of like the super big obvious ones that even us not in the States hear about, but I think it's a cable news network. So he's still an anchor and a journalist, and he has a wide audience, but it's not like national. I think it's like probably within a certain, like, his state and a bubble of states around it, and then you can probably access it from anywhere, but you'd have to search a bit more, like be scrolling, flipping through more channels and stuff. Unlike something like the dreaded fucking Fox News or like CNN or like one of the more big obvious, like everyone knows about them, even if you're not American.
He was on MSNBC, I think. So
okay, that's pretty big, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he's I wouldn't say he's prime time? Question mark?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's
neither of us are American, so we're not the most expert in that area.
Yeah, but overall impression, there's a few issues I have with some of his reasoning and some of his examples. But overall, I think I like the way he frames the attention, how we get to attention, and how there's an attention economy. And I do like his how does he call it? It's his solution, I think, or what he's reclaiming our minds.
Yeah,
is his last chapter, and I like his idea for that. But we can get into that a little bit more later.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think if I was going to rate it out of 5, I'd give it a 4.
Yeah, I think I gave it, hold up, I had Goodreads pulled up and I closed it, like somewhere between a 3 and a 4, because in my normal scale, my normal standard, if you will, is, if I read it and I liked it, 3 stars, read it and I loved it, 4 stars, etc. Hold on, go to my read list, please. Sirens Call. Did I give it a decimal point, though? That's what I have to look at, because Goodreads is like, oh, see, I actually rated it 2.5, because I didn't dislike it, so I didn't want to give it a 2, because that's less than, but I read it, and I enjoyed parts of it, but overall, it's probably, like, my least favorite of the 3 nonfiction books we've read this year.
Agreed.
So yeah, 2.5 is what I gave it. It's mostly because I felt like the overall concept, again, like I said, I was drawn to it because I was already noticing the phenomena he's describing happening to myself and other people. So half the book felt like this isn't really new information or new concepts to me. I almost liked some of more of the minutia and the micro details and the like tangents he go on in history, like some of the smaller things I ended up liking a lot more. And like, whereas the bigger picture of the book, I wasn't as gripped by or moved by. So that's why I think I gave it the 2.5. But I did highlight a lot of lines because I like the way he writes. And I liked about a lot of the, like I said, the random offshoots I learned about while reading this book. And it's like, okay, so you've identified this problem, but I didn't get much of a part. I think at the end he's even like, I obviously don't have, this is still such a new problem in our generation. I don't really have a solution to this right now. And I was like, well, I would like some proposed solutions, but so yeah, that was my bigger picture. The part I found the most ironically intriguing, just because I've never thought about how cool our brain is and that it can do this thing. It's very early on in the book that he talks about it.
How it blocks things out, right?
Yeah, like the ability and like all different types of attention. So I'm like, you're either paying attention to something or you're not. But there's actually like three or four types of attention he describes. But yeah, the idea of where you're still aware of background surroundings, but and your brain's tuning stuff out so you can like focus on a conversation even though you can hear other things. But how there's certain things that our brain is so hardwired to pick up even when we're actively tuning things out, like your name or certain like keywords or phrases, it'll still pick that up, and even if you don't consciously realize you're still listening or absorbing stimuli from around you. You think you're so locked in, but there are some things that'll pierce through that veil, and that just goes to like survival instincts, genetic instincts, all these other things. But I've just never thought before, and especially now as someone, like I said, who I notice I need background stimuli to be more productive. Like I'm now borderline uncomfortable if I'm not, if there isn't like background noise while I'm reading my book or while I'm doing chores around the house, while I'm doing my day job, working from home, like, but yet how much my brain is working by doing that. And like, I'm making more work for my brain by adding stuff it needs to filter out, but it doesn't feel like that. And it was just such an interesting kind of like pose a question in my brain. And then it made me think, I wonder if this is why neurodivergent brains that fall in the like more active category, like I would think, again, I'm not an expert in this, but like ADHD and stuff like that, I wonder if that's why phenomena like body doubling and stuff is so common for people that are that neurodivergent in that way. Because like my brain's already overactive, my brain already is like, my neurons are already firing too much too often at the time, so at least I'm giving my brain more work to do by having other stimuli around to then tune that out, because it's keeping it engaged. Again, that has no scientific logic. I have no idea if that's true, but that's the idea that came to my mind while he was talking about the different kinds of attention.
What does body doubling mean?
Body doubling is a phenomenon where it's like people who, if they are sitting on their own, like say they had a work from home job like me, or even if they have chores to do, but they can't, like executive dysfunction, they can't bring themselves to do it. But if there's someone who's going to do a task alongside them, then they can. That's what like the co-working idea even is. So it's like having like a double, another body in the room. They're not helping you actively on your task. They're not doing the same thing you're doing, but just having someone be productive near you kind of makes you able to be productive on your own things.
Okay, that's very much like me. Yeah, I didn't realize that there was a term for it. Yeah, at work, I'm the first to do a job because there's other people next to me.
Yeah.
And if I see them and then they're doing work, I'm like, oh crap, I need to do work.
Exactly. Well, there you go. Now you learned the word for it. So yeah, he didn't talk about that specifically in the book, but the way he described the different types of attention and just your brain's quite phenomenal ability to be able to be actively tuning out while also subconsciously absorbing and listening to other stimuli when you're in like a crowded room, or you're maybe like James has a stream on, but I'm also doing something, and like I can simultaneously hear what his game's doing, and like later I'll ask him about something that happened in his game, even though I was doing something else. Like when you think about it, the human brain is wild, basically. TLDR.
It's really cool. It also means he talks about how gossiping is actually quite good, but it's probably a good idea to never use people's names because they will hear you.
Yeah, that this book has made me realize even more now. It's like, why the whole, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all, at least if you're not in the privacy of your own home. Because literally, subconsciously, even if you would think no one can hear you over the din of a crowded room, but our brains are so hardwired to listen for certain cues, and the top one is your own name. And even if they can't hear a single word you're saying, somehow they will hear the fact that you said their name, and all of a sudden their attention, you've got it now, grabbed in there. Yeah. So the other main idea of this book, other than just describing, the different kinds of attention, the way people and companies and, media try to grab your attention, is the idea, as you said, of this attention economy. Like I always was a person who thought we were still like in the information age. Like the thing that every company wants from me is my information. That's what they're selling. And I'm the product. Like if I'm using a free service, like a social media or a free game or like Discord, I'm the product. And I thought what that meant was my information and like selling it, which is still true, but in 2025 it's no longer your information is what's most valuable. It's your attention, just your eyeballs and your concentration, so they can advertise to you, so they can learn about you, so they can do all these things. And just how much money and time and effort goes into making, like, finding new ways to grab, and also the difference between grabbing, like, gaining your attention and holding your attention, and how even those kind of compete against each other. Because ironically, in trying to hold your attention for a longer form content, they're more likely to lose it. And that's where this endless scroll short form content in so many ways has now become dominant. So it's much easier just to constantly try to grab your attention, to be like Navi going, hey, listen, than to say it once and then keep you engaged. And
yeah,
I found that terrifying but fascinating. Why bother trying to hold their attention? We can just constantly just disrupt them and just grab it that way.
Well, that's the thing, right? It wouldn't work. When he uses the cocktail analogy, where it's there's the voluntary, involuntary, and then he adds the social tension.
Yeah.
The voluntary is you're having a chat over with the person you've gone to a cocktail bar with. You're voluntarily keep getting their attention. The involuntary one is the one where it's the I don't know what you call it, the human brain. Oh, you need to listen to this. There's a big loud noise, scary. But you can tune that out. If there was someone kept dropping glasses, that would eventually get tuned out. Mm-hmm. So you can't just keep smashing. Hey, here's visuals. So cool. You have to have an attention that's actually worthy of being viewed. Mm-hmm. Which I guess his TV career really does go into detail, like how it works that way.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the different platforms that exist. Also talks about the challenge, because, at the end of the day, for you to keep your platform and to keep your audience, you have to do the low-hanging fruit, the cheap attention grabbing, because at the end of the day, numbers and eyeballs and attention are what matter, but you also care about using your platform correctly and to disseminate news or information or some other content that you think is worth your audience seeing. And almost like that, the battle in the way our modern society is set up now, that a lot of the stuff that we really should be focusing on and engaging with, it's not flashy, it's not attention grabbing, it can be hard to hold people's eyeballs and ears for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Disappointing. Yeah, because like the very first sentence I highlighted from early on in the book was, he says, to live at this moment in the world, both online and off, is to find oneself endlessly wriggling on the mast like Odysseus, because he references the Odyssey myth frequently, fighting for control of our very being against the ceaseless siren calls of people and devices and corporations and malevolent actors trying to trap it. Because somewhere at some point, like we are constantly, our attention is under assault and someone's trying to grab it and usually monetize it, which is pretty crazy.
I guess it always has been. It's just nowadays it's like, it feels more perverse. Like, we can't be expected to have our attention on the music that we bought and went home with, It's we have to have our attention split.
Yep.
Constantly. It's kind of what I mean. I kind of voluntarily do that, like you said earlier, where you have like, you're playing a game but you've got a podcast on or something like that. We kind of voluntarily do it, but we really shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I know. And this has made me so much more like kind of just aware or critical of where I am paying my attention and like who's getting it, so to speak. And I'm just like, you know what? I should guard this thing more carefully, and I should be more intentional about where I direct this constantly. The next note I put in the book, because this also was a recurring theme of the book that kept coming up, was because obviously nowadays, like, we're just starting to get into the concern about all these different attention models and the way technology and feeds and media are set to try to mine our attention. But really, the other thing we're still, the like big social concern, I'd say that we're still kind of like deep in the middle of, is the concern about social media and screen time, both for adults, but also very much so for children. Now that every child from the age of like 7 has a smartphone, is on their computer, or iPad kids, etc., etc. And he was talking about people being concerned about this, and had lots of quotes from various other publications, like a New York Times Magazine article from 2018 tracking the dark consensus about screens and kids, convinced the devil lives in our phones, it's wreaking havoc on our children, etc. And he talks about these things, but then mentions all these other cyclical, like this is a pattern in history since the industrial age, that the minute something new comes up, everyone's like, this is going to be the downfall of society, this is going to be the worst thing ever. And then in like anywhere from 10 to 30 years, no, we're now not concerned about it anymore, and there's something new that we're more concerned about, is how it's affecting our brains or society as a whole. Because even he wrote, I'm inclined to agree, but I find myself shrinking more than a little at how much the conversation around the evils of our phones sounds like a classic moral panic. And my footnote there was that it made me think of the satanic panic with D&D, which was like a 20-year, like, if your kids are playing D&D, it's a direct pipeline to Satanism, and like all these things that are going to happen, and how it's so bad for your kids' brains, and your kids, they're so impressionable and do this, and then that panic dies out. Like, and then he mentions other things, like when the radio came out, everyone had the same level of discourse about the detriment to humans' brains, the detriment to our social habits, like when radio came out, and then when television came out. Like, this is a very actually repeating pattern in history, which I'd never thought about before.
Yeah, he goes back to Plato and Socrates about how Socrates was against the idea of the layman learning to read and write.
Yeah!
Because they wouldn't be able to keep their memory. But I think he does a good job of framing the dislike of using the social media too much to health. And I think it's my favorite quote of the book, actually, where he has King James talking about cigarette smoking.
Yeah.
How bad it is.
Yeah.
And it's just the way he says it is like, loathsome to the eye, hateful to the nose, harmful to the brain, dangerous to the lungs, and in the black stinking fume thereof, nearest resembling the horrible Stygian smoke of the pit that is bottomless. It's like King James is just alting about cigarette smoke in like the early Middle Ages. Like, what the fuck? But like, I think the way he attributes it to a health issue is a lot better, because if it is actually a harmful thing, radio isn't actually damaging to human beings, but this way of wasting away in front of a phone for hours and not really doing anything, it is kind of becoming a health issue itself.
Yeah. Well, at one point, they did believe in the book the radio caused illness. The quote was, the New York Times had an article that said, do radio noises cause illness? And a quote from the article was, there was general agreement among doctors and scientific men, obviously men, that the coming of the radio has produced a great many illnesses, particularly caused by nervous troubles. The human system requires response. It cannot be kept up at the jazz rate forever, which obviously is not true, but that made me laugh. Yeah. But they also, again, he talked about how specifically not just this discourse of the newest advent of technology being detrimental to our attention, the specifics of the discourse update every 10, 20, 30 years, but the problem itself is so not new. There was like politicians' debates and speeches from 1894 already complaining about shrinking attention spans. Even like you said, Plato in Greece was worried that writing would ruin memory and attention span because they don't need to rely on their brains anymore. The quote from 1894, instead of reading, people are content with a summary of the summary and are dipping into subjects and gathering information in a superficial form. Which also makes me think a lot about today. People will read a headline and then act like they read the whole article. Or the whole phrase TLDR. Like, we do that pretty egregiously now, where we get summaries of things, and then people act like that's all they need to know. They're experts on subjects.
It's getting worse with AI, because
I know.
Summarize things.
That's like the worst thing that's ever happened to Google, I swear to God. He talks a lot about, too, the Google, my favorite word from this book was in-shitification, which is specifically with, like, search engines, technology, social media platforms, but when they make themselves actively worse and go against their core focus from when they were created, just because of, like, stockholders, profits, advertising revenue, the in-shitification of Google, and that's the biggest culprit, that fucking AI summary.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. I love that word. Yes. Made me happy. Scrolling through my highlights, because some of them are probably just interesting to me. Other people will be like, was that really that revolutionary, Laura? Are you that silly?
One thing that I was kind of surprised by is how much he does quote Marx.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of Marxism discussion in the book.
Yeah, and it's not even like about like specifically like socialism. It's just about like, because as Marx was a philosopher as well, it was about his things like this. But obviously he philosophized in all of his works, even in the Communist Manifesto. But there's another quote I like in here where he talks about how the work of the proletarians has lost all individual character and consequently all charm for the workman. He becomes an appendage of the machine.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, and it makes sense. You kind of, when you're in this sort of space, you kind of are just becoming part of like a structure of just making money.
Yeah.
And that's what your attention is. Your attention has become an appendage of the advertising revenue.
Agreed. Yeah. And then the way he described our current attention spans and this attention economy, also for me, it adds insight, because there are so many certain things going on, and he uses climate change as the most egregious example, but even like some humanitarian crises around the world of things going on, but says the greatest civilizational challenge that humans face, for example, the warming of the planet, has proven so difficult to solve in large part because it evades our attentional faculties. It's something that is happening slowly over time. Like, it's so everyone now in 2025, unless you know you're a absolute idiot, nutjob, crazy conspiracy theorist, or some other outlier, everyone knows climate change is real and climate change exists, and even to some degree how severe it is. But the fact that it still is something that is happening, like, we can't look up and see the holes in the ozone layer with our naked eye. We still see the effects every day, like, you know, the crazy ass weather, increased wildfires, all this shit, but it's still technically such a slow moving, gradual thing that it evades our attention span. Therefore, people aren't pressed to deal with it. And even things like what's happening in Gaza or the Ukraine, the minute something goes on for a long period of time, it becomes so hard for us collectively to pay attention to it, because the news cycle, the way the attention economy works, is short bursts, new, constantly. And that's why so many of these problems that, even though we know, and somebody was like, how can people be ignoring this? It's because the way our attention spans are being mined and the way that we're now predisposed to consume news and content, it just puts us at a disadvantage for addressing shit like that.
Yeah. It's wild. But it goes to show, like, he's probably like a pretty good source of the kind of like knowledge on this kind of topic, as someone who would be in the news industry where you will talk about things in short-term attention span of the news itself. Yeah.
Well, because, and he talks about in his industry too, because he says considering the news, large mass enterprises like cable news involves chasing audience attention more than leading it, and that is one of my biggest like complaints about any sort of journalistic, whether it be a news channel or like an online website or like print media, because like newspapers and print news still do exist. That it feels like they aren't actually sources of information. They're more slaves to us. Like, we dictate what they're telling us, and it should be the other way around. We should be looking to them to tell us, because they have people whose whole job this is to pay attention to what's going on in the world and help tell us about it and make sure we're informed. But instead they're like, what's already in the attention span? Let's talk about or write about that to get there, to keep that attention economy. And I hate that so much. That makes me so sad. It feels like it goes against the whole purpose of those institutions, you know?
Yeah.
And then a lot of this book too, I thought it would have, when I suggested it would have a lot of direct relevance to content creation, because our whole job too, much like a newscaster, like if you're someone who's trying to make it a full-time content creator, or you're one of the, you know, the niche like 0.05% of people who can do this for a living and not just for fun to hang out with your friends or like play games together or stream whatever type of content it is you make, you're also kind of chasing attention, chasing trends, doing all these things. And he talks about those who work inside the attention industry are stalked by fear that people will stop paying attention, that our tricks won't work, that will be ignored. This fear creates all kinds of negative effects and behaviors. And that makes me think of the content creators who always start out with the best of intentions, and they start out making genuine content, relatable content, or something that's doing well, but then in chasing that high, that's where you start getting the rage bait, the clickbait, they start just descending into just making more and more questionable decisions and questionable content, and it's all in the name of attention, in that spiral.
Yeah, that can get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and my immediate thought, this was a rather, it's niche, like, compared for me, I'd say, because you'd be like, this is not a name I give a shit about. This is an interest that does not pique your mind, but in that world, she's the opposite of niche. She's one of the biggest creators right now. But I immediately thought of, there's a beauty creator on TikTok, Michaela Noguera, depending on how you say your name, who started out just like your kind of everyman, but like woman, just relatable makeup tutorials, relatable girl who worked at an Ulta, like a makeup store, but had dreams to, like, you know, bring makeup tutorials to the world and also be like a plus size like person, not a stereotypically supermodel attractive person. And she blew up, was her skill with makeup, but also being so relatable and being so down to earth. And now she has just become synonymous with lies, false advertising, clickbait, rage bait, and also just rampant consumerism and materialism. Because as she blew up, she just started chasing these trends, and then it was like, well, now I got to keep this audience that I got. But it's like you didn't get your audience this way. Like, now you're trying to appeal to large numbers en masse rather than the people who actually got you here, and it's not. And on paper, it looks like it's not serving you, but then I'm like, well, she's still making those paychecks. She's still has a crazy numbers of followers. Like, clearly it is working, and that's what's depressing.
There's two things that makes me think of. There's the darker side as well, where people think that because their audiences are the ones who dictate what their content should be, they can move from benign content like makeup tutorials to things like OnlyFans or stuff like that. Because they're fans that keep asking them, and they're like, oh, would it actually be that much of a big deal? I keep getting asked and asked and asked and asked, and then they eventually do it, and it's not like they're being forced to do it, but it gets to a point where it's like it's some sort of like coercion.
Yep.
But obviously that's their own business. But it is a bit weird how it's almost like you go on Twitch nowadays, and a lot of the highest viewed women, they have OnlyFans accounts.
Yep.
Which is fine. There's no problem with it. It's
yeah,
just,
no shade. Get your bag. Make your bag. Sex work is work.
It's just, would they really be doing that if like they needed to?
If that pipeline didn't exist, like that wasn't such a. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It was so lucrative to them. I can't remember the second thing I was going to say was. Nah, it's gone.
Happens. Another quote I highlighted that also immediately made me think of how this applies to content creators and the difference in garnering attention. He talks about how hard it is to turn like viral short immediate attention into long-term attention, and it says, given how much easier it is to grab attention than to hold it, there would be enormous monetary rewards for anyone who figured out a way to bypass holding attention and simply maximize means of grabbing attention iteratively over and over. And that makes me think of how there's a lot of streamers now, and even people start calling it out. It seems less and less like when they are actively live, they care about interacting with their community and engaging long form content, but they're like clip farming. Like they're trying to create these just short viral moments over and over again, almost completely separate from each other, just for later, for the TikToks, for the clips, for the reels, like whatever. And people are chasing, rather than trying to build, like, because it's slower, harder growth, and build a community that is going to be there for longer chunks of time, just constantly be chasing the viral high of that next, like, hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok for short clips and farming that kind of content. And how, in some ways, that's a lot easier.
It is. I did an experiment, I don't know how long ago it was, with Profane's channel, where I would just, like, clip certain things that I thought were funny, do a quick edit in, like, some video program, and post them on, and you'd get hundreds and hundreds of views, but it never really translated into anything. Yeah,
like it's not like people are coming back to his channel to then be like, oh, that clip was so funny, I'm gonna go seek that guy out and watch it happen in real time. Or like I just had my first clip on TikTok recently. I had my first video pass 100k views, which is huge for me, and it's still getting views right now. It's at like 120k views now, and it was about Expedition 33. Have I seen that translate at all to any of my Twitch streams? No. Or even other TikTok videos. Like, yeah, I did get like a quick burst of followers, but like even other Expedition 33, even similar content, because part of my problem is I definitely don't follow social media rules. If I really cared about truly trying to maximize growth, I would have a TikTok account just for like my bookish stuff, then I have a TikTok account just for my Twitch and gaming stuff, you know, but rather than just, I have one account and I put everything on there because I don't have the time or energy to do that and to really like hyper focus and make niche accounts, even though I should. But even then, like, I posted a few Expedition 33 TikToks right after that had a similar vibe, a similar editing style, because I didn't just like shunt it right from Twitch to TikTok. I did some editing on them myself. Like, I actually put in work to make them slightly transformative content from when they were on my stream. But they still didn't have near the same amount of payoff as that one TikTok, and none of that has translated no longer. It's such a wild platform. Wild west of social media, TikTok, I tell you. And there's a sad fact.
And it is very sad. I think your captions have lost.
Sometimes I find when there's two of us, they're still working. Oh no, wait. Yeah, mine are lost. That's so strange. Well, let me refresh it. Hold up. I'm going to send you a new captions link too, so let me do that. Here, I'm sending you a new one right now. Thank you for catching that. And yes, captions users, we do our best here. Sometimes you'll miss some things, because also I've noticed if one of us is like going on a bit of a longer time, sometimes it's almost like it waits for the full paragraph to kind of be ready, and then it all shows up at once, but then my captions box is only so big on my overlay, so sometimes you'll miss some stuff, and I apologize, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, the solutions that he thinks to go up, and I like these because, funnily enough, I've been doing them recently. I have bought an old Yamaha tape deck.
Hell yeah.
And I've got a Sony Walkman as well. And I think these kind of things are going to help a lot more with people when they have like a physical thing to do or work with, and it has that feedback where you can press play and then press the stop button and it pings back and stuff like that, and having to actually physically make a mixtape,
rather than just click buttons for a playlist.
Exactly. And when that's your only source of music, you don't skip songs.
Yeah,
because you just listen to it. You put the good stuff on there, and you just listen for your songs, and it's good. Your attention is on the music that you actually enjoy, and you're not just like skipping around constantly looking for the next. I don't know. I guess people do get dopamine hits from music, but it's seeking it constantly. It must be bad. You don't get to appreciate good music. You're just listening to music that makes you have a hit.
Exactly.
And I think that physicality of like he uses the vinyl as his sort of thing, where like people collect vinyls and they care about vinyls and they put their attention into this type of physical thing. I think that is going to be a good way of differentiating it, separating our music from our phones, separating our news from our phones, using newspapers, using tapes for our music. I think it's just a better idea, and I think we should be doing stuff like that. We should be separating our attention to different things.
Yep, agreed. You mentioned the Walkman, and that right again, it's not at all a major focus of the book, but one of the tangents that was one of the things that stuck out in my mind the most, and I found it just because I found it so fascinating. I also had like a Walkman and a cassette deck like as a kid, because we're old enough that we had those. And I would use I had a Little Mermaid cassette, like the songs of Little Mermaid, and I use it to fall asleep. Every so often I wake myself up by rolling over and yanking the whole cassette deck off my bedside table and hearing it like crash to the ground. I'm trying to find because I know I highlighted it, but I remember it pretty decently without the highlight. But he talks about the inventing of the Walkman and when it was first made and how much it cost, but also how people freaked out, because I was like, well, why would it be such a big deal? But it was truly the first time listening to music had become a solo experience, and just the idea of like that major of a transition, which I never absolutely would have thought of before. But yeah, it was because the either the creator or the CEO or someone really high up in Sony was going on a long flight, and he wanted to be able to listen to opera on his flight. So here it is, I found it, 1979. When Sony introduced the Walkman, the first mass-produced portable individual device for listening to music. First ever. The device was a brainchild of Sony's legendary co-founder, Masaru Ibuka, who asked Sony engineers to create a portable player to listen to opera on his long-haul flights. It was immediately a hit. Stores couldn't keep them in stock at the very dear price of $150 in 1979 for a Walkman. That's crazy.
That is wild. The one I bought is £50.
And like in $150 in 1979 is way more than 100. Hold on, where's inflation calculator? I want to find out how much that would be like nowadays.
I'm gonna guess it's gonna be like 320.
Okay, so 150 in 1979. Calculate.
It's gonna be more.
You are close.
Okay, damn.
Oh wait, no, that's a percent. That's a percent change. Never mind. I saw the 303. No, that would be $604 today. But to be fair, like an iPhone or an iPod when it was new, like also cost those things. And it was revolutionary. Because before, even with vinyl, listening to music was still a social, like it was a smaller social, not like a concert. But even on vinyl, you'd like gather in your home, your family would listen to a record, you'd invite friends over. It was still like a social experience. A Walkman is the first individual listening experience. So like I get it, but it's still just wild to think of because now it's like this like a cheap knick-knack pick them up from even with nostalgia value, you know, pick one up cheap on like fucking eBay or Facebook Marketplace. But yeah, $150. It blew my mind for the first Walkman.
Nice.
And then the Walkman got that cyclical hate that I was talking about, that this is going to be the downfall of humanity, because a quote from a manager at a department store when they were selling out was, the Walkman was the disease of the 80s. A CBS record executive calls it the end of meeting people. And New Jersey, there's a town in New Jersey that banned the device, and then this law remained on the books. Like, it was still technically and legally banned in this town in New Jersey until 2016. That's fucking funny. That's hilarious. Sony was so concerned about the hermetic loneliness. Yeah, and then Sony was so concerned about the loneliness of this experience of the first Walkman, they started making Walkmans with 2 headphone jacks and a button. Like, you know, we used to like do the share headphones, take one headphone out, give it to your friend.
Yeah.
They started making ones with built-in headphone splitters because everyone's like, the loneliness and the solo experience of this is the downfall of society. And now, I just think how isolated we are now. Even walking through the street, everyone, you know, headphones in, something on. We all project like, my attention is absorbed, do not talk to me. And even activities that used to be, even inherently social activities are still done more isolating now. Like gaming when I was a kid, gaming with your friends would be go to my friend's house. We're both sitting on the floor in front of our GameCube playing games together. Like, it was still a physically social experience. And now we're all on our computers, which is great because I can do it with anyone from around the world. But I still miss the feeling of going to my friend's house, or like anywhere from 2 to 4 to 8 of us, like with our devices in the room together. It's like difference between playing D&D out at a table with your friends versus D&D online on Discord. Both are great, and it's better to have one version if it's that or nothing, but it's definitely not the same. That social experience.
I think board games have that advantage, but I guess Tabletop Simulator exists as well.
Yeah, right? In the vein of that Walkman thing, that was just like, this is a random tangent, but it is, I'm going to remember that fact about the Walkman for the rest of my life now, because I found it so gripping. And because this is another thing that happened in my lifetime, but I was still so young, I didn't notice this, but it blew my mind. The ticker on the bottom of news, like that wrote the moving text, that scrolling text that I now think is ubiquitous with all like mainstream news, that only started in 2001 because of 9/11. Before that, there was no ticker on any news outlet because they would just, you know, keep your attention without it. But then because there was so much going on, but so much coverage was devoted to 9/11, I guess like lesser news they put that ticker on for other things, but then the main anchors and the talking points and the video footage could still be focusing on this. But also for, I think, in real time updates, like statistics maybe of like numbers dead or like whatever. Either way, it was first used to display headlines on September 11th, 2001. And that's wild because I'm like, that's been the thing my whole life. No, it hasn't. That happened in my lifetime.
When I read that factoid, I was like, that can't be true. But yeah, that's so interesting. And it was an innovation from Fox News as well.
Yeah, that sentence too was wild. I was like, God damn, Fox doing something useful, creative, innovative? Hello? Boo, yeah. Fox News. Yeah, and even my footnote there is wild. I swear in my memory, it's always been there, which is crazy. And then there was a section where he did talk actually quite a bit about gaming, and like even how the mining of our attention in the gaming world has changed, and how slot machines and gambling technology has almost like infiltrated so much of gaming, which of course all of us, it's like you don't need to tell us twice, but not in the obvious ways, like how there's now gambling streams on Twitch and like virtual slot machines, but even like with loot boxes, the gamification of all these different aspects of games, even just the way our social media feeds, the endless vertical scroll was designed after the vertical scrolling wheels on old school slot machines, because they maintain the spot of the peak attention getters for like decades. They haven't been dethroned in the endless scroll, flashing lights, noise, chance of winning. Like, it's the perfect way to just grab your attention. Yeah,
it's better than that 100 points come up and when you kill someone in Call of Duty. It's like,
yeah. Even the numbers, we joke like gamers like numbers, like more numbers better. That comes from slot machines. The idea of seeing flashing numbers on the screen is instant like dopamine trigger. Like, I did good thing, I'm winning. And it says this is why gambling streams work so well, because now we're combining also the live streamer aspect with just the attention grabbing that is any slot machine, virtual or physical.
Yeah. I didn't like one thing he mentioned about video games, where he said that the gambling model is like a standard in the industry.
I just pulled up that quote, yeah.
But like it's just like, not all video games are like this.
Well, one thing he did though, I said, this is why, in my opinion, single player RPGs are the superior gaming form, like Expedition 33, because it says the designers of these games focus intensely on anything that might take a player out of this zone. The job is to keep the player at the machine for as long as possible, to dominate and monopolize their attention, and fend off any competing attempts to woo them away. The core model for most video games in terms of aggregate global hours. And I said, this is why single-player games, in my opinion, superior. They are designed to end. They are designed to have an endpoint. They're not like a Fortnite, a Call of Duty, an Overwatch, and anything else where it's like, oh, ended? Quick, get right back in, queue you back up. Like, they are not designed... Yes, they still want to keep you there to some degree, but they are an experience that has an end. The story has an ending. And yeah, there's replay value, play them again, but there will still, even a game as expansive as like Baldur's Gate 3 or like the new Divinity that will come one day that was just announced at the Game Awards, there will still, at the end of the day, it's massive, but there is a finite number of replays you can have at the end of, when all is said and done.
It's designed to stop being played. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's a much... Yeah, and that's a much healthier outlook for gaming, and in terms of our ever shortening attention spans, and just also all the demands on our time. So, single player RPGs, in my opinion, superior gaming choice.
I'm a little bit disappointed that I missed that. I don't know how I must have missed that.
I can tell you what page it's on a Kindle, but that won't really help you potentially.
Oh no,
yeah.
Okay, I'm less annoyed by his take on gaming then. That's the case, because he really understood. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Also, this statistic just made me so sad. In 2013, like, I realize it's not as saddening as it sounds, because it's accumulating like an aggregate of things from so many people around the world, but this is in 2013, 12 years ago. The Washington Post reported humankind has now spent more time playing Call of Duty than it has existed on Earth. Every year, Call of Duty players collectively, obviously it doesn't mean since the game's been out, because humans have been around a lot longer than Call of Duty has, but they mean when you combine all the players' hours from around the world.
Keep them all in a line, yeah.
Yeah, every year, Call of Duty players collectively log 475,000 years worth of gameplay. That's crazy! Over the course of their 6-year history, Activision's 21st century themed combat simulations have cost us 2.85 million man-years. 14 times longer than humanity has existed. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that for everything, though.
I know, like, it's not...
read books and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, it's not as terrifying or, like, oh, shock value, a statistic as it sounds at first. But it's still, I read it and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Blew my mind.
He just characterized it as a waste of time, which is a little sad, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of wild how much people are playing what is basically a Skinner box.
Yep. Scroll a little further in my notes. Yeah, this is also... This was one of those highlights I highlighted not because this was, like, revolutionary or, like, blew my mind, but this is the kind of thing that I already was very well aware of. This book just put it into words better than I could have. And this was always my hypothesis of why, for my personal attention span, is shortening. Because as I get older and I have the luxury, since I am someone who works from home and I am child-free by choice, and I, am privileged enough to not be having to, like, work multiple jobs and scrape by paycheck to paycheck kind of thing. I have a wide option of things that I can choose to do with my free time. And I constantly have the first world problem of I'm bored because of decision paralysis. Like, do I read? Do I play a game? Do I watch something on Netflix? Do I catch up on Critical Role? Like, what do I do with my life? And the quote, "Never before in human life on the planet have more people had access to a wider array of diversions at each waking instant, and yet we are increasingly stalked by the sense that it's not enough. The more diversion available, the more diversion we need, and the more intolerable we find its absence." What was that last sentence? Like, now,
like that.
Because we have so many choices, it's like paralyzed by too many options.
Yeah, and he contrasts, like, how we live with how indigenous tribes still live, where they don't actually have words for boredom.
Yeah. I found that fascinating because I as someone who's like a giant language nerd and not just like the history of language and etymology, but again, just what language says about a society, and that's one of the biggest tells is not only what words are they missing, but what items or experiences or like phenomena do they have the most words for, like how the Inuit people have something like 14 or 20 words for snow or something like that, or like people joke like the British have like 20 ways to tell you it's raining, like from a more colloquial perspective.
Yeah,
but then to not even have a word for boredom because they don't know that experience because they're just so content and they haven't had their attention eroded the way we have is crazy to me.
It is. There's the anecdote he reads off about how there's a British guy goes to them and is like, I don't know what they would have done all day, so he taught them smoking.
Oh my god, I know. Again, it's the classic, and some people I can think of immediately come to mind in modern day, invent a problem so they can solve it and like pat themselves on the back and be like, look what I did. It's like, no, but this never actually was an issue. Like, you made this an issue. They were fine. On that note,
chilling.
There was also a lot of discussion, thankfully, along the same lines of thought. I'm sure we both and many people in our spheres of influence share about good old Mr. Trump in this book. he got a lot of real estate in this book, but it makes sense as much as I hate it because he is kind of, it did give me a lot more insight because before I was always just so dumbfounded, just again, because you try and think of the best in humanity and you try and hope that others, obviously now more and more every day I'm proven wrong, have at least a portion of like the empathy or the critical thinking skills that, you or I or people around us would think we have. And you'll wonder, like, how do people like this man exist? How is he allowed? How did he even get here? And this book did actually finally make it clear to me how he got here. And it's not, again, just, he purely just farmed the shit out of negative attention and made it work for him shockingly well. And I hate it.
It's crazy. I remember you mentioning that, but I just remembered another anecdote I heard somewhere else, where there was a period of time, like not even a week ago, where apparently Trump had made 400 posts
my God.
400 posts in an hour.
How is that even possible? Like,
I don't think it is possible.
Like, there's no way. He has to be having, like, AI or technology, like, doing it for him. Ghostwriters. Or, yeah, people, like, with his accounts doing it for him. Yeah, I found one of the quotes I highlighted about him. Again, I apologize, listeners, that we're talking about even giving airtime up to this man. But, like, it is understanding how he was allowed to get to this place. Hopefully can help us realize when it's happening again. And, well, obviously not us, because we were all the ones saying when it was happening, what the fuck are y'all doing? Stop it. But in general, well, this is a story of Donald Trump's life, wanting recognition, instead getting attention. Also, the thing that the difference between attention and recognition was a very interesting conversation for me. And then becoming addicted to attention itself because he can't understand the difference. Because he's dumb. Even though deep in his psyche, there's a howling vortex that fame can never fill. I was like, God damn, what a fucking savage, but so accurate read on this pathetic man.
Yeah, it's like that whole, there's no negative press. No such thing as negative press. It's basically how Donald Trump lives his entire life. As long as he's saying something and people are listening to what he's saying right now, it's fine. Because the thing he said that was offensive 20 seconds ago doesn't matter anymore because he's saying something else that's offensive now.
Yeah.
And he lived his entire life, and I don't know, he got to be the president of the United States doing it. I
know. In this chapter, he'd also mentioned the character Willy Loman and the play Death of a Salesman, which I knew very well, being someone who went to theater school. I have seen that play on stage.
Same.
And he also talked about, Nelson Mandela, because when he was imprisoned, the main punishment other than imprisonment was deprivation of any attention. Like, even his guard wasn't allowed to look at him, talk to him, address him, like act like he's not even there. And so the following paragraph after that just savage read of Donald Trump was, because no one really wants mere attention. Not Mandela in his cell losing his mind and soul to loneliness, nor Willy Loman trying to peddle his wares, nor even Donald Trump compulsively posting. We want recognition, and attention is a poor but plausible substitute. And that's also why so many people, I think, that chase virality, like content creators, for example, always, even when they hit it, they have those moments, they have the viral video, they get these fleeting moments of attention, and then like, why is this not good enough? I think it's because they don't realize it's not exactly what they wanted. It's attention, not recognition. They wanted it to translate beyond people's eyes are on you in this moment. People are talking about you in this moment, but they want it to go beyond that and then be recognized for what they did in that moment.
Yeah, it's this another tangent to myself. When I post on Blue Sky about every game I complete, I'm not really doing it for attention. I don't really care. I'm doing it because I want a conversation.
Yeah, recognition.
And so the recognition of it. I want to like speak to someone about it, which is the kind of cool thing. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes Pine will have a little chat with me about a game.
Yeah.
Which is cool. That's what I want. It's the whole point. I want to just speak about those kind of things in an interesting way. And I don't think many people do anymore. I think like you said, more people care about the attention because that's what actually makes them money.
Because they want like likes, clicks, reposts. They don't want discourse necessarily. And even the following page, he writes, social attention from strangers is the psychological equivalent of empty calories, and the tantalizing opportunity of the buffet of social attention that our phones now provide can lead us to gorge.
Yeah.
So I thought of a good empty calories.
This might have been on one of your streams. I think I talked about how my next year's resolution is going to be about making the internet a better place.
I love that.
This was before I was even reading this book. I wanted there to be like a motivation for me to have these kind of discussions in a place a lot more often. That's why I want to post these kind of things, so I want to talk to people. But to do that, you kind of do have to reciprocate, and sometimes you have to do it first.
Yeah.
So I think this is a better way of handling social media, is to be selfless a lot more. Which obviously the case. Being selfless is always good.
Yeah.
But I think engaging in those kind of like strong conversations means that you'll get it back as well, and it's probably something we should be doing more often.
Yeah, that's part of why I am so passionate about charity streaming. And making sure, because it's like when I'm doing that, I am spending at least a percentage of the time I spend streaming has a measurable and tangible impact on like I'm putting something positive back into the world by doing this. In this case, it's like a dollar amount attached to a charity that's going to do good, but also the discussions that it leads to when talking about that charity, the awareness, the eyeballs. Because like, if anyone has been wondering what the donation bar on top for today is, since it's the month of December, I am raising money for Project Hope with my stream team, Team SideQuest. And Project Hope is a charity that has boots on the ground in places like Gaza, like the Ukraine, countries that have fallen out of the very short attention cycle of news and media because the conflicts there have been going on for so long. Like the war in Ukraine is something like over 4 years old now, which blew my mind to think about. Like, it does not feel real at all that was so long ago that started. But that's the very reason why so many people, it's fallen out of public eye, and it's not like the trendy news topic anymore. And I bet you a lot of people probably still, they might think it's over. They might think it's ended because we don't hear about it anymore. And that's not the case.
One of the good things I like about the BBC is that they keep the big news stories as part of their headers. So Israel-Gaza war is still there. War in Ukraine is still there. COVID has now dropped off because COVID has dropped off. But the war in Ukraine and Israel-Gaza war being there is really cool. It means if you do want to get an update on that, you can, because they're still reporting on it, which is great. 51 minutes ago, for example.
Nice. Again, yeah, that's definitely one of my more, like the more favorably looked upon news sources, I would say, because most mainstream news now I have a fairly negative opinion on, and that's one of the few that's still probably like decent amount of respect, or I would say there's still like integrity in journalism there compared to some other places.
It's the best we can really get for free in the UK. I think the Financial Times is probably really good. But they're so expensive. It's so expensive. You want to have a daily Financial Times, that's £300 a year.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
Wait. It might actually. Because you can get the digital one, but I don't want the digital one. I want to read the paper.
He talked about that in the book too. He mentioned like the New York Times still has a shockingly high, for what you would think in 2025, like print subscribers, and that they actually would really struggle financially if they cut out like their physical newspapers, because even though it's a small number, they're also just so much more profitable than their online like subscriptions, which was refreshing to hear. Because I think of print newspapers as like a dying thing, and as someone who is also like a big forever lover of Gilmore Girls, and listens to it at some point every day, usually because I listen to it to fall asleep. And of course, one of the main characters' whole things is she wants to be a journalist and like work for a publication like the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, something like that. So, and they spend a lot of time talking about journalistic integrity, and there's so many scenes that involve them like reading the paper and things. I'm just like, God, that's not a thing. Like, no one like sits there at breakfast and like splits up the papers. Like, what sections do you want? And like, we'll sit and read in a newspaper together anymore, and that's sad.
Yeah.
Instead, they just scroll their phone.
It is sad,
right?
But if you want to have access to all of FT stuff, it's £69 a month.
It's like 200 Canadian dollars. Jesus.
Oh, sorry, $69 on the site. Sorry, but
still 200 Canadian dollars.
I mean, you can get it for 10, the digital edition, which the digital version of the print newspaper and magazine, which is pretty cool. So just $10 a month, that gives you the access to the newspaper, but it is on your phone, which looks a bit. But I think the Financial Times are probably the best newspaper. Yeah, in my opinion. But you are paying for it.
Well, hey, quality, you get what you pay for, as they always say. One of the other core, I think, tenets, I'd say like the pillars of this book, of my takeaways, was he talked about the isolating effect on us psychologically, and most of us don't even really know. It's a very subconscious psychological effect, that being reduced to like eyeballs or views or numbers. And like in streaming, I think we're maybe a little bit more aware, because we talk all the time about the danger of like boiling down your audience to numbers or to views, because like behind each one of those views is a real person. And if you're like sitting there complaining about like, oh, there's only like 5 people watching my stream, that's five very like real whole people who could be watching so many hundreds of thousands of other things, and not just streamers. They could be watching Netflix, they could be scrolling their phone on social media, they could be reading a book, they could be spending time with their loved ones, but they're watching you, and you're reducing them down to this statistic. And that's part of this attention economy. And the quote that I highlighted, it was also when he was comparing our attention to like wage labor and having one of his like Marxist discussions. It says, human work has always existed, but wage labor is a creation of industrial capitalism. Human attention has always existed, but clicks, content, engagement, and eyeballs are creations of attention capitalism. And to be reduced to a wage or an eyeball is to find oneself alienated from some part of oneself.
Yeah, I liked the alienation chapter quite a lot, because there was quite a lot of Marx in that.
Yeah.
He's spitting facts the entire time.
Yeah, and I was someone who was I knew only very, very basic, bare bones, like, Marxist ideals were what he was talking about, so I actually learned quite a bit about Marxism, even though he's giving still fairly surface level, but it's a really good, like, surface level for someone who would know nothing about, like, Marxist's beliefs or his writings. I think he does a very good job at making them very digestible, clear, but not, like, simplifying them, like, oversimplifying them, per se.
Yeah, it's good philosophy in there. It's a shame that like socialism would have this. Well, it wouldn't have this problem, but it wouldn't have a solution to this problem either.
Yeah.
So that's. I mean, he says in the book he's not a Marxist either. So
yeah.
Marx has got some good ideas. Shame he hasn't got any good solutions.
A lot of people are and that's also I think my problem in the past with reading a lot of nonfiction books. It's like, well, harp about, this is a problem I've identified, or this is an opinion I have. And it's like, okay, great. What do you propose to change that? And they got nothing. And I'm like, well, if you don't even have an idea, or even like a super idealistic, like, I know this is impossible, but in an ideal world, here's a solution. Now what? And then talk about needing to find the realistic steps between your ideal pie in the sky solution and then a workable, tangible solution. Not even that. And then another thing that he brought up in the book that I think was also, I think we have a much bigger awareness of this, being people who are very online, like we are, talking about how the attention economy is also so deeply flawed, because so much of the attention that exists, which he also puts forth, this attention is a finite resource because there are only so many humans in the world that exist and so many minutes in the day. Like there is a cap. There's a limit on how much attention you can get. So companies have to, you can't create more, other than if you're going to, like, you know, start cloning humans and, like, you know, physically spawning human beings to grow up and consume your media. But the main way you get more, the main way you get more attention is by stealing it from other companies. Like, you have to cut into other people's numbers. But he also suggests the other problem that people found to combat this is evidence suggests an enormous portion of the attention being bought and sold on the internet is being consumed by bots or other programs designed to game these very metrics and markets. A 2018 study by Adobe determined that nearly 30% of all web traffic showed strong non-human signals. This is an astonishing degree of fraud to tolerate.
Yeah, it brings up the dead internet theory and the enshittification of the internet. It's just how much of the internet is just two robots speaking to each other.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So when he talked about, like, the old days of the internet, obviously I have conscious memory of life before the internet, and I'm in that last generation who will have it, but it's still not a ton. Like, I was still very young. It's not complex memory of life before the internet, compared to people who might have been, like, teenagers or young adults or adults when the internet was around. And he's talking about the old days where how much work it was to really go and, like, search out the information you needed, and how much genuine connection there was in these old, like, limited chat rooms and forums and things like that. And it really, like, people joke about the boomer, like, back in my day, and the rose-colored glasses, and, like, nostalgia makes everything better, but then enshittification is very real. And I think of how much of a cesspool so many corners of the internet are nowadays, and as much as people joke, it's like, yeah, the common refrain of all the internet used to be so much better. It genuinely sounds like it really was. Yeah, it was more work to access and to use, but that also sounds better because it made you use more of your brain. It made your attention be much more concerted and, like, dedicated, because things were harder to use and access. Like,
it was genuinely hard to upload a picture on the internet, let alone a GIF or GIF or a movie or audio. It was so difficult to do it. You had to go to a specific website to upload it to that image hosting website, and then you get to post it wherever you wanted. And you couldn't just post it as an image. You had to do it in HTML. You had to like assign it something. And but nowadays you just post, you copy and paste into fucking Discord, and it automatically generates a link you can then post to anywhere else. It's wild.
Yeah, or even like at the start of the stream going live, I posted the same thing on like Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, 5 or 6 Discord servers, like in seconds. Like that's early internet users back in the day would think that's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
The good thing about the old internet was just that small community, like total millions of little small communities on forums, and the only ones that have, I think, persisted, the only real ones that have actually survived, are the ones that it cost money to join.
Yeah, for real. This is another paragraph I highlighted in that chapter all about the alienation of the attention age. The defining experience of the attention age is a specific kind of alienation. It's a feeling that our very interior life, the direction of our thoughts, is being taken against our will. This comes from the sophisticated development of attention markets, which have figured out ways to extract and commodify more and more of our attention more and more efficiently. The alienation we feel is born of the tension between attention as a market commodity and attention as the very substance of our lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, there's lots of great insights in this book, and obviously I still enjoyed reading it, but it's one of those, like, I would never go back probably and read this whole book in. I would go back and look at my annotations, because they kind of, like, yeah. I picked out the nuggets of this book that appealed to me. I would probably never need to go back and read it again as a whole, kind of thing. But I do think it also has more relevance, like, the information in there is valid for everyone, but if you're a content creator or someone who is chronically online or someone who works in any sort of media or journalism or anything like that, or any industry that involves attention, even like marketing and stuff, I feel like it probably would have more value as a read to you than, I don't know, if you're someone who worked in a more like a physical blue collar job, or even like an office or administrative job or something like that.
Well, even then, I think it's probably quite relevant, because we got, like, it's a problem. You got, like, he talks about his kids having a video on and playing a game at the same time, and he just hated it. Just the intuitive hate of it.
I felt so guilty reading that part, so like that's me now. Like, I want to play a game, but I put up like a YouTube video on my other monitor, and I was like, God, I do this. I need to, and that's like one of my resolutions for how I want to be more focused with my attention. Like you said, yours was, he talked about one option was, again, the going back to almost like going backwards to older physical media, like a physical cassette player or physical vinyl, or making your own like mixtapes. Or also, I think that's why, obviously, all reading is good. Reading is reading. And if like this is more accessible to you than this, like do this. But I do think this is why I retain more and I enjoy reading physical books more than my Kindle. Because again, I feel like it takes more of my attention, and also see the reward of seeing, like as I read, seeing how me get closer to the end. Even though my Kindle at the bottom tells you have like this many hours and minutes left in the book, it's not the same. Like I don't get that little dopamine hit of like watching the pages fly by, you know, and physically holding the thing, and then having my shelf trophies, which is people like, well, you have a Kindle now, why wouldn't you just unhaul so many of your books? Think of storage space. It's like, this makes me feel happy, not from a materialist consumer standpoint, but I look back at these and I can remember, I mean, I see a book on the shelf and I remember reading it, I remember where I was when I read it, I remember how it made me feel, and I can see all that and look at it as like quantifiable time well spent, whereas I don't have anything to visualize all the hours, not necessarily wasted, but like consumed by, you know, like playing when I want like that mindless entertainment, like playing games or putting on like only half engaging content while I mindlessly do something else over here, you know? So that's my thing, is I want to try to do less of that, something on one monitor or on one device while doing something else, or like listening to a movie while I'm also playing a game on my phone or my Switch, because I'm not watching. My eyeballs are not on that movie. I look up sometimes. I look up during the scenes that sound the most interesting, but I'm like, Laura, you're not watching the thing. You're really not. Multitasking bad. Start being more singular and selective with your attention. That's my goal.
It's It's a good thing. Yeah, I agree. I think people should be doing it more. It's also, you engage with the content much better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when he was talking about how your brain basically it absorbs everything around you in your environment, but you filter it out. It's the same thing with a movie. When you're rewatching the movie and you're genuinely rewatching the movie because you actually want to, because you didn't think
I didn't watch it the first time.
But you actually realize, oh shit, my brain did watch this. I remember every single thing that's been said, but I don't feel like I do. And it just ruins movies for you. So you have to, like, you when you're doing something and you want to engage with it, you should be doing that and that alone. Exactly. I'm going to try and do that as well myself.
Exactly. All right. We have to wrap things up here because in 10 minutes I got to go wake the pupper up from his nap. Man, you want to look at a good example of dedicated attention. Watch your dog, man. Like when they're doing something, their whole ass self is focused on that toy, that bully stick, that tennis ball, their meal. Like goddamn. Just thinking about it now, I'm like, I aspire to be as focused and being as present in every moment of my life as my dog. So is there anything else you want to share about the book or about any changes that it made you want to implement other than the one you've already mentioned in your life, or any other final takeaways?
No, I do want to read more books though. But that was going to be the case anyway. But yeah,
well,
yeah,
you're still doing good on that one.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well then, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me, and again for being one of the motivators of mine to just get out of my bubble and read more nonfiction books and things. Obviously, this is probably doing wonders for my brain and just, you know, making sure to, because also I think if you're someone who is continually learning, that's how you can be the best version of yourself, and that's how you can be constantly evolving and probably the most beneficial to society, is if you're someone who's always learning. And so many people lose the joy of learning, and they think of learning as like a chore or a task or boring. This is helping me not do that, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and vice versa. The book club is really cool to motivate me to do as well.
Hell yeah. Now our current read that we'll be talking about next month is a big pivot from this. The physical book for that is downstairs. Here's the other two books in that trilogy, but it's called Of Light and Nightmares. It is an urban fantasy book by an indie author who is local-ish to me. It's an author from Toronto, so shout out Canada. But one thing that's very exciting is the author herself, because I met her at a bookish event, has graciously offered to do a Q&A on stream with me about her book next month after we finish it. Obviously, we're going to do 2 streams for it. We're going to do our chatting stream like this, but the author will not be present there because reviews are for readers. Feedback of a book, your subjective experience of it is for the readers and fellow readers. It is not for authors. Authors should not be in the review space, and I firmly believe that. But I still wanted to do something, and she offered to be involved in some way. And I think a Q&A stream is a great way to still facilitate conversation about the book. And thank her she also gave me ebook copies to give out to book club, to anyone who wanted to read it, but maybe couldn't get it. Because again, she's an indie self-published author. This isn't a book you'll necessarily find in your mainstream local bookstore per se. So if you end up reading this with us this month, Of Light and Nightmares, and you have questions, make sure to put them in the book club Discord. I'll put the link for that in the chat as well. And then at the end of the month, we'll vote on our January read. We'll see what the first book pick of 2025 will be. Very exciting. So there's a bunch of nonfiction books I've now started making a list of, but I realize so many of them are very, very female, women oriented, and I'm like, I probably should make sure we're not just being too hard on that category and isolating any of our male identifying readers who would be like, yeah, I'd love to read I read this, but might feel a bit more self-conscious to chat about it since they're not the demographic it's oriented to per se.
It's all right. My favorite nonfiction author is Hannah Arendt.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Sassy. I think in the current book discussion room in the book club Discord is where I've asked people to put if they have questions for the author Q&A for Of Light and Nightmares, and then in Book Recs we can compile lists for more nonfiction reads that you guys are interested in, that you have time for, or that I can put some of the ones I've seen that I'm very interested in. and we can gauge interest. But yeah, thanks so much for being here. If you watched on YouTube, thanks for watching on YouTube. If you're watching and it's still the month of December, I'm going to put the link to our Hopeless campaign in the video description. So make sure to check that out just to learn a bit more about Project Hope, even if you can't support the campaign right now, because they're an incredible organization. They sent me a little gift today. I got a little gift in the mail with some little Lego Christmas ornaments.
Lego.
And some Christmas cards, like postcards and stickers and stuff from Project Hope, which is nice. Also, they sent postcards that show like some of the places they're working in. So like there's a postcard of one of their operatives in Ukraine. That one doesn't have this is in the US. This one's in Turkey. This one's in Ethiopia. I couldn't read the letters backwards because they're backwards on my thing. Colombia. Yeah, pretty cool. Look, they're in all these different countries all around the world doing incredible work. So check out, if you want to learn more about the specific work they're doing, check out our Tiltify campaign. And in fact, we have raised $125 so far. And if I pull up the thing, they've now activated, you can see exactly what your dollar amount can do. So if we hit $150 on my stream raised, that's enough to provide a breast cancer screening for a woman who's uninsured, or a woman in like a crisis affected area, or it's enough to provide a generator in Gaza to fuel a generator, which is very needed and very important right now. So yeah, phenomenal charity. Thanks so much, Somniloquy, for being here. I'll have the link to Som's Blue Sky profile down below if you're watching on YouTube. So if you want to be part of those conversations about the games he's playing that he mentioned, then make sure to check him out there. And yeah, join our book club Discord, please. See you next time. I will be live next tomorrow with a D&D one-shot for Project Hope. So hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.